setting track marks on the R24 is very straightforward, and I know I mentioned it in previous videos, but just to recap, here there is a mark button. It's labelled mark/clear, because it either places a mark or it clears a mark depending on where you are and what you're doing. Now as you're recording, you can click that and lay down marks, and again, a real world example of where you might want to do that. This week we were in the studio doing a bit of recording of a rehearsal, just messing about, and at the beginning of every song I let the device just chug away and record for about an hour and a half, did the whole rehearsal. But it was nice then when I got back home to be able to go straight to the beginning of every song and cut out all the rubbish in between of us whining and bitching at each other. So by at the beginning and when we were going to play every song, and bear in mind this is running at record the whole time and I'm using practically all the tracks, you're just able to tap the mark button, it lays down a mark, and you can then skip to the marks with these forward and backward skip buttons here. You can go straight to the beginning of a song, so you can do it as you're recording. Equally on playback, if you've got something that you've already recorded, let's say it's one song this time rather than a whole gig or rehearsal, but you want to do a bit of work around the vocal when you're mixing, or when you're EQing, for example, you want to do a bit of work around the vocal, and you want to be able to skip straight to where the vocal comes in, leave out all the lengthy introduction and just go straight to the vocal every time, quickly and easily. Again, you could hit play just before it gets to your vocal, hit the mark button and it lays down a mark, and the marks can see, where are they? Here on the home screen there's a little thing that says mark, and at the minute 00, there are no marks. It's on the beginning of the song is always an automatic mark at 00, because you can then, as you know, go straight back to the beginning of the song using the stop, hold down and tap rewind button, and that skips you straight back to mark number 0. So that's automatically set every single time by the R24, but you then can add additional marks in. Now if you skip forward to say mark number 3, nothing's playing, nothing's recording, you've just got the song, you skip to mark number 3. If you then hit mark on mark number 3, it will delete mark number 3 and it will reorder the remaining marks, it will renumber them and put them in sequence. So quite a handy function, very easy to use and very handy for navigating around a lengthy song, or certain parts of a song or certain parts of a gig or rehearsal. Something again I would use fairly frequently. We'll now take a look at the AB repeat function, which is this key here, and how you might use that and what it's good for. Unfortunately on this video I don't have access to a set of speakers, monitor speakers, or even an amp, so I can't actually play back to you any of the tracks that I currently have on this, and there's loads of music on this at the moment, so you just have to take my word for this. I can't actually demonstrate it, but you can go away and have a play with it yourselves, I guess, so there's no great shakes. The AB repeat is really good for quickly and easily setting up a loop in a song for you to work on that will repeat over and over and over again until you cancel it. So a good example would be if you have guitar, bass, drums, whatever, and a vocal part on a track, and you're doing a bit of EQing, and you just want to look at the vocal and you want to try and experiment with different EQ settings on the vocal, maybe bring the top end down a bit to reduce hiss or sibilance, S sounds, maybe roll off the bottom end a little bit to reduce any boom or handling noise from the mic or coming up from the stage or whatever it might be. So if you locate your vocal part on the R24, you just hit play, or if you've used marks, skip to the vocal part if you have a mark down, and when you get to the bit you want to work on, hit the AB repeat button. Now nothing will happen except on the display here you'll get one half of a curved arrow coming up on the display somewhere here, and that's really the beginning of your loop, and let it carry on playing, and when you get to the end of the bit you want to work on, hit the button again, and from that point on the song will just keep looping around and around between those 2 points that you've set, the A point and the B point, allowing you then to hear the effect that your different EQ settings are having on that one section of vocal, without you having to keep stopping, rewinding, hitting play. It will just loop automatically for you until you press it a third time, and it will cancel the loop that you've set up. So it doesn't mark the track or harm the track or do anything to the recording of the track. It's just really to allow you to concentrate on one section of the song, be it vocal, guitar, whatever it might be. So you can play about with it, and it'll just be on a constant loop, and it is really useful for doing that kind of thing. So again, I've used that myself, and it works really well. It's very easy to use. So once to set the begin point of the loop, once again to set the end point of the loop, and it will then carry on looping automatically as long as the play key is pressed, and then a third time again to cancel the whole thing, and that's it. Punching in and punching out on the R24. What does it mean? How do you do it? And what are the what are the circumstances in which you might wish to use it? Again, as I said in the previous section on the AB repeat function, I don't have access to speakers here, so I can't let you hear this. But I can try and explain it to you, and then hopefully you'll get a bit of a flavour for it and go away and try it yourself, because again, it's very, very easy to do. Okay, let's imagine you have bass, drums, guitar, whatever on the device for a song, okay, and you're laying down your vocal track here, and you get part way through your vocal track and you suddenly forget the beginning of verse 3, and then the band carries on playing, and then part way through verse 3 you suddenly remember the rest of the words and you're able to finish the song. So obviously that bit in the song you don't wish to remain in the song. But you don't have to record the entire vocal all the way over again from the very beginning. You can use punching in and punching out to just record the bit that you got wrong. And likewise, if you're playing an instrument, a bass part for example, and you fluff a note, you can then go in after the fact using punching in and punching out and just correct that one note. And again, as with everything on the R24, it's very quick and very easy to do once you know what you're doing. There's two flavours of punching in and punching out. There's manual or automatic. Now, manual involves you actually pressing the record button here. I'll show you in just a second. When you want to start recording the new bit, and then pressing it again when you want to stop recording the new bit. And that's all well and good if you have a hand free to press the button. But if you're playing the guitar or the bass or the piano or whatever else for that matter, you're unlikely to have a hand free, which is where the auto punch in and out comes into its own. So what you would do is you would arm the, let's have a look at this, we can arm these. Let's imagine these, I don't have anything on these at the moment, it doesn't matter anyway because I can't play them to you. But let's imagine normally for playback you would have something like that going on. Oh, and that one up as well. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tracks armed, ready for playback, master faders up, we can hit play and start listening to it. And let's imagine this track here is our vocal track, okay, track number 5, this one here. So what we would do is to manually punch in and punch out to correct a section that we got wrong. We can arm that one for record. We can hit just play on here. Don't hit the record button like you normally would if you're recording something. Just hit play, and everything, including the vocal track, will play back. Then when you get to the bit you want to change, hit record, and this will start recording just over that section that you want to change. Then when you're at the end of that section, hit record again, and it will stop recording. So you've only recorded over the little part of the vocal that you wanted to change, the bit where you forgot the words, and the rest of the vocal track is as it was when you first recorded it. So that's manually punching in and punching out. Okay. To do this automatically, you use the auto punch in and out button here, and what you do there, similar to the AB repeat button, is that you set up a punch in point and a punch out point on the track, and you set this all up as I've done here. You hit record and play, and the whole thing starts to play back. But this red light here will flash instead of constantly red indicating it's recording. It will just flash indicating it's ready for recording. And as soon as it reaches in the song the punch in point that you've set here, this will go solid red and it will record. And as soon as it reaches the punch out point that you've set with this button here, it will go back to flashing again, and then you can stop the track, rewind and listen to what you've done. So what it does, it negates the need for you to physically have to press the record key here, leaving your hands free to do other things like play a guitar. So that's the auto punch in, punch out button. Now what I would recommend you do, and I haven't checked yet with the manual whether this is crucial or not, but I've found actually it does say this in the manual. If your record mode setting, remember the thing we looked at right at the very beginning of this video, how to change record mode, overwrite versus always new. If you have the record mode setting for always new, then punch in, punch out will create a new file with silence up to the punch in point and silence after the punch out point. Well, you don't want that, I would suggest. Most of the time you're punching in and punching out, you want to retain it as one track as part of your vocal, for example. So what I would do is change the record mode, the way I showed you earlier, to overwrite, because you can change it at any point within a project and even change it back again. So change it to overwrite just for this punch in, punch out bit. Do your punch either manually or automatically, and what it will do, it will merge your punch with the original file. So in this case it will overwrite the bad section of vocal that you want to change and replace it with the new vocal, the new bit of vocal that you just recorded using the punch in, punch out function. So I hope that's explained that clearly. The thing to watch for, I guess, is this light here. When it's flashing red, it's not recording, it's just ready to start recording, either when you hit the record button here or when it reaches the punch in point. And then when it reaches punch out, it will start flashing again, indicating it's stopped recording. Okay, so I hope that explains it clearly. Right, the final thing I'm going to look at in this video, because time is marching on, and try and keep these videos down to sort of half an hour, 40 minutes, and do them in reasonable sections. So the last thing we're going to look at this time is bouncing. What it is, again, why we do it, how to do it. Bouncing is where you would reduce a number of tracks. So let's say you have 8 tracks of music. Actually, let's say, just for ease, let's say you have 6 tracks of music. Let's say that's a drum kit. Snare, kick, hi-hat, tom 1, tom 2, tom 3, whatever way you have your drum kit mic'd up. Let's say that's a drum kit. So you've recorded your drum kit. Now your drum kit is currently taking up 6 tracks on the R24, and I should just say this, to be quite honest with you, with 24 tracks available to you on the R24, bouncing is going to be less of a concern for you, because what bouncing essentially does is it reduces a whole number of tracks down to 1 or 2 tracks. And bouncing, really, if you've only got a 4-track or an 8-track recorder, bouncing would pretty much be a way of life for you, I think, in order to free up tracks to record more stuff. Whereas with this particular device, 24 tracks is loads, and you're probably going to not use bouncing very much at all. But if you do need to do it, here's how you do it. Now, let's say you want to reduce these 6 individual drum tracks to 1 master drum track. So you've done your recording, you've got your tracks all lined up, and you'd like to collapse them all down to maybe a pair of stereo tracks. Okay, so you've got your pan and EQ and everything set up here. I'm going to look at that in a later video, pan and EQ. You've got any effects, reverb, delay, or your insert effects. Again, I'm looking at insert effects in another video. So you've got all that set up for your tracks. You've got your relative levels all set up here, so you've dropped your kick down a bit because it's dominating too much. You've put your snare and your hi-hat up. You've got your levels here ready to go, and you want to then, you're happy with that mix. You want to then collapse that down or bounce that down into either 1 track, or more likely with a drum bounce, a pair of stereo tracks. So you can put your stereo link on the way I showed you at the beginning for tracks 7 and 8, and then engage the bounce mode, which is the second soft key here. If you look just above the key, the second key, it says bounce. Okay, and if you hit that, it comes up on the screen bounce on, and the word bounce is now lit up with a sort of pale background to show you that the bounce function is on. And now what we can do is select our destination tracks for the bounce. So let's choose for this. I'll tell you what, let's actually switch on for tracks 7 and 8 a stereo link for a start, so we can carry on with the example. So how we do that: pan EQ, we're already on stereo link, select the tracks we want to link, so 7 and 8, so just select 7. It will automatically pair the odd track to its adjacent even track, as you're aware. Turn stereo link on, they both light up, exit out of that. So now we have a stereo file here, blank stereo track here, and our individual mono tracks here of our drum kit. Okay, bounce function is engaged. So what will happen now when we we arm this for record in the normal way by pressing the record button. Now that's ready to go, but it isn't doing anything yet. We'll hit play, and the minute we hit play, anything lit with green with the faders up will start being recorded to anything lit with red. So in this case, this pair of stereo tracks here. So it's a little bit like, in fact it's identical to your final mix down at the end of your project when you're creating one stereo file from all your different instruments and vocals and everything. So a bounce really is just a version of creating a master, a mix down at the end of the process. The difference there is the master fader is red, and there's one master fader which is actually controlling 2 tracks. It's a stereo master fader. Even though there's only one fader, it's actually controlling a left and a right stereo track. Whereas here, these are mono faders, and it's only by stereo linking them can we get a stereo track. So just to repeat, you arm the destination tracks for record, make sure bounce is switched on, make sure you've got your transport controls armed ready for record, your level set, your EQ and effects and everything else you want set, so that's going to record exactly as you hear it now, and then hit play, and the whole thing will start bouncing down to the tracks that you've got armed. In this case this pair here, and as you know they're stereo linked, so this one does nothing, this one controls both. I think I'm right in saying that this will set your record level now, so keep an eye on your meters here, and don't be peaking into the red as usual. Try and keep your peaks into the orange, and if they're peaking red, just reduce that a touch. And likewise, while you're recording, because you've got to do this in real time, if you've got a 5-minute drum track, it's going to take you 5 minutes to bounce it down. You can ride your faders in real time while you're recording. So if the kicks are, if the kick's not quite prominent enough in the mix, you can actually bring it up very slightly while you're recording, and it will increase the level of the kick to the bounce. And then what you're left with then is one bounced stereo file of your entire drum kit, freeing up all of those 6 tracks now for recording other things onto, and your drum kit is now on one pair of stereo tracks. So that's an example of how you might bounce. You can, in the project menu, I think it is, oh, it says stop recorder, let's stop that. In the project menu here, in the record mode, the second option is bounce track, and at the minute the option is set to mute. You can actually move the jog wheel to select play or mute as 2 settings. Now if you have, it's normally set to mute, which means that anything on the destination track, now in the last example we gave, these were blank so it doesn't matter, but let's imagine this contained a vocal and this contained various guitar parts or whatever it was. If you wanted to bounce all that down to one track which contained vocal and guitars, then you could bounce it down and set the bounce track mode to play, and it means whatever's on the destination track will also play and be included in the bounce. It's up to you really what way you want to bounce, whether that will be useful or not. I've only ever used it in the mute setting because I'm normally bouncing down to empty tracks, so it doesn't really matter to me whether it's on play or mute. But if you want to include the contents of the destination track in the bounce, then have your bounce mode in your project settings set to play, and it will also include that in the bounce. So that's bouncing how you do it, why you would want to do it. And I say really the advantage is it frees up tracks to be used then for other things, but with 24 tracks at your disposal here, it's much easier just to switch banks with the bank buttons here and use another 8 tracks. You know, you've got loads at your disposal on a 24 track thing. If you were using an R8 and you only had 2 inputs, then you might be using bounce very, very frequently, but on this probably less so, but it's nice to know it's available if you need to use it. So that's bouncing. Okay. Okay, YouTube. Well, that's it for now for this series. Episode 3 in this series of R24 videos. Again, I hope it's been of use. Apologies for not being able to actually play material to you while I was explaining it. But go away and play with your own device, and then you can verify what I'm telling you is correct. And the next episode we'll be looking at panning and EQ and the very useful insert effect, which does take a bit of getting your head around, but once you understand how it works, it's very, very useful and something you'll use quite a lot. So stay tuned, hit the like button if indeed you did like what you've seen here today. Hit the subscribe and you'll get notifications automatically from YouTube of any future videos in the series. Thanks for your time, and I look forward to your comments as always. All the best. Take it easy.